Hi, everybody. I'm David, President of DSCA, and everybody welcome to our May 1st regular meeting. And yeah, welcome everybody. I am really pleased. I think we've got a really interesting meeting planned today. Let's start with, we've got a whole bunch of people on Zoom. We've got our member reps. Is there anybody, Charlie Nablesmith from Central Coconut, a number of folks, three of our board members, Judy Mower, Patrick Fanning, and I'm not immediately seeing Peter Blanton, but welcome everybody. And one thing we want to do is record some of the names of you folks. Is there anybody new to a first time board meeting? Nope, okay. And then I wanted to extend a welcome to Commissioner Jen, who has just arrived. Also, I'd like to extend a special welcome to David Rovine, who is the new member rep from Revo, and he's on the Blue Ribbon Van Wezel committee also, so a good person with a lot of special knowledge. And I saw coming into the room Norm Freeman. Norm is representative from Jefferson Center. Hey Norm, welcome and thanks for coming to be part of our DSCA community. That said, let me, am I forgetting anything else to for first time welcome? Thanks. So moving ahead, this clearing a quorum, I'm seeing members here. The only person I think we're missing is Roger Berry. And and then I'm also seeing, I don't know if I'm seeing Mayor Alpert on Zoom. So, well, let's declare a quorum if we may. Oh, there she is. Welcome, welcome, Mayor. Thanks for coming. Moving on, gotten any introductions. We circulated the minutes from the last meeting, which were quite abbreviated. Were there any comments or edits to minutes? If not, is there a motion to adopt?
So moved.
So moved by Ken Sheelan, and the second.
Second.
And Victor McTier is a second. All in favor?
Aye.
I'll take that as a unanimous. Moving ahead to our treasurer's report. Clark, what do you have for us? Interest rates are up, so.
We have $12,817.06 in our checking.
Okay. All right. I know under discussion with Patrick and Jamie is the billing for our market. And then may I ask those of you folks on Zoom, if you're not speaking, would you please mute? We're picking up somebody enjoying some potato chips. It sounds like. Thank you. Moving ahead, our guest, if you don't know AG, you may have been living under a rock for the last several years. Mute, please, on Zoom. AG has a storied career. He and I spent an hour and a half together the other day getting another. We've got some interesting things in common, including being business gypsies of sort. I took the opportunity to further try and acquaint AG with some of the DSCA background, including some of my boring charts. We had a really good conversation. We're kind of overdue in having him as a guest speaker, but it seems quite timely given where the Bay Park is at this point, getting really revved up on their phase 2. So we're going to ask AG to speak, and then we can keep it on the brief side with the slides, allowing a little bit more extra time for questions. So with that said, AG, welcome
Thank
to
you, David.
this.
Thank you. I've met many of you, and it's good to be back. We're neighbors, obviously. I brought one lead behind. It's from April 2021, so it's a bit dated, but it's an op-ed that talks about how the Bay will benefit the community, and it goes through the health and social and community health and conservation, environmental, and then economic values. So you're welcome to take one of those. My colleague Trey Hammett is here with me. Trey just joined us a whopping 6 weeks ago, maybe 6 weeks ago. So he is an instant expert on everything that we're doing. But he's jumped in, he's a member of the team, and he's primarily responsible for grants and fundraising. So how do we put the slideshow up and advance the slides? Okay, you're driving. With apologies to the mayor and vice mayor, this is going to look a lot like the presentation you just saw 2 weeks ago, okay? Because it is. You saw it 2 weeks ago. I'm also going to apologize. I'm good until 5 p.m. and Trey will stay afterwards if you still have questions of us, but I have a chamber commitment. Go over.
This is amongst our biggest Zoom crowd ever, I think. That's really good to see.
Okay, so we're at the right place at the right time. Next slide, please. That looks like the end. Let's go that way. Perfect. Okay, good. I'm going to try to accomplish 3 objectives: an update on the Bay sort of to date, phase 2 progress, and a preview of what's ahead, and then what you might be able to do now. Next slide, please. There we go. Okay, yes. This, some may think this goes without saying. David and I were talking about that. We both spent a lot of time traveling around the world, mostly on business, and in most cities, great parks do make great cities. I'm very pleased and proud of what our city, Sarasota, has done investing in parks and recreation, and I'm very pleased that they are our partner here. However, if you talk to most people on the street, they will tell you in Sarasota, great beaches make great cities. And so we're trying to get the balance right. Green space to go with the brown beach. Next slide, please. One of the great things about this project, and one of the things that I inherited when I came aboard to serve on the Sarasota Bayfront Planning organization, which was tasked with proposing a master plan, a governance plan, and a financial strategy for what's become the Bay, were guiding principles that were initially the result of a series of community dialogues, meetings with neighborhoods, neighborhood groups, different organizations. I think at the peak we were over 50 members of the Bayfront 2020 Coalition. They were aided by HRNA advisors from New York, and they basically came up with these principles. And I have to say, these continue to guide everything that we do. We're in the business of transformation, of first and foremost conserving the land and transforming the land and the water into a healthy, environmental, sustainable state. We are one park for all, and to be open, accessible, free and welcoming to the full and rich diversity of our community. We are a gathering place, and that's one of the things that's really working, as I'll talk about in a moment. We're sustainable environmentally, improving water quality, but we're also going to be sustainable financially and sustainable operationally. And then one of the most amazing things about this startup, because we are still a startup, is that it's built on partnerships. We have a major long-term partnership with the city of Sarasota. all of our implementation partners, so all of our architects, designers, landscapers, engineers, construction firms are partnered. I'm the project manager. My planning partner is from Kimberly Horn. My owner's rep is a consultant from Sarasota. My other planning partner is from Sasaki and agency. On the programming side, which we'll talk about in a moment, and on the operating side, we have over 200 partners. So when you go to the park and you participate in an activity or an event or program, that program is being provided by a partner, most of whom are from here in Sarasota. Next slide, please. This is a timeline. It takes a bit of time to bake a cake, and it's taken us about a decade, but the progress really started to pick up, and I feel like we moved step by step in a logical building block way to get where we are. There are a lot of firsts. The guiding principles were a first. I think a community committee to propose a master plan was a first. For sure, the partnership agreement with the city was a first. The tax increment financing was a first. And we started building park in 2020, Fountain Garden area, the Pagoda. We then did the Mangrove Bayou walkway in 2021, and we opened the park that you see now. There are 24 acres, 10 fully finished in October of 2022. Next slide, please. I've learned in life that saying what you're going to do and doing what you say usually works. This is an artist's depiction of what we thought main 8 or 10 acres of the park would look like. Next slide, please. We're going to go pretty fast now. That's what it actually looks like at sunset. Next slide, please. This is a night view, same park, different angle. Mangrove Bayou on the right, common ground on the left. Next slide, please. This is the promenade that we're looking west between Boulevard of the Arts and Sarasota Bay. Next slide, please. This is the arch or the shade structure on the pavilion by the Nest Cafe at night. Next slide, please. Swing on the Mangrove Bayou walkway, overlooking the bayou actually right here. Probably two of the favorite birds in Sarasota these days, Sarah and Zoda, named by the community. Next slide, please. Sunset, we have 12 or 15 yogis now. We have hundreds at our yoga classes. We have probably 1,000 at our weekly fitness classes, which are the full range. It's incredibly popular, and we've had to move the yoga classes around the park to find enough room to accommodate all of the aficionados. Next slide, please. We do movies every Thursday night. We do a special family movie night once a month on Fridays. These are quite well attended, and frankly, a real value for families that have a couple of children. And if they go to the movie theater, they're out $100 or more by the time they buy tickets, by the time they buy each child popcorn and a Coke. As you know, if you've ever been to our movies, sometimes we're able to offer free popcorn. For a while, we were offering free ice cream. That was a bad idea. Kids and sugar don't mix when everybody wants to watch the movie. Next slide, please. We do have dance every Wednesday night. I was reminded it's Bailando tonight, so we have salsa one night a month. We do Hollywood, believe it or not. We do Zumba, and we were doing line dancing. So if if the spirit moves you and you want to get your feet moving, it's amazing the turnout that we get for dance night. Next slide, please. Okay, this is sort of a little accounting of how we've been doing. This is through, I think this is through March, but about 450,000 guests have come to the park since we opened in October of 22. Over 50,000 have come to one or more activity or event. We actually count at every activity event, and we have 3 counters that count people coming to the park. The great thing about guests who come to activities, they tend to more often be new, and they tend to come from farther. So we're not just reaching Sarasota County, we're reaching Manatee, DeSoto, and Collier counties. We have a lot of, we've made over 2.5 million connections with people in the community. We do something like this every week. We're in touch with our guests in the community virtually every day. We're very proud of the 70 million plus gallons of stormwater that we're treating. We're very focused on resiliency. That entire 1 mile contiguous Sarasota Bay shoreline will all be resilient. There will be 8 acres of the 50 acres that will be resilient shoreline along the bay, along the bayou, along the creeks, around the ponds. And we're also very proud of what we're doing to take nitrogen and phosphorus out of the water before it enters the bayous, the creeks, or ponds, or the bay. And before we're done, we're going to have to treat over 300 million. So that's the charge ahead. Next slide, please. Now we'll turn to phase 2 progress. Next slide, please. This is the original condition of the park, and I always say, yes, that is a color photo of the park, and it simply demonstrates how much of the park was hardscape, you know, rooftops and mostly surface parking. This is the this is the master plan update that was approved. That's fine, we can stay here. That was approved by the City Commission, Mayor, Vice Mayor, and their colleagues on November the 20th of 2023. And we outlined in the dotted blue the 4 projects really that make up phase 2. This is, as you'll see in a minute, twice as big a project as we undertook in phase 1. There are 4 pieces. We're going to replace the seawall and the day docks and dredge the canal. We're going to extend the resilient shoreline up here. We're looking at seeing whether we can add this, if we can scrape together enough money to do it. And throughout Hoggs Creek, which is fairly polluted, unfortunately. We're going to redo the front door of the park, which again, if you look at it across the street, looks mostly like parking lot. It will look like park, just like the park looks coming from Boulevard of the Arts. And we're praying, and we would ask you to pray with us that the Army Corps of Engineers will eventually approve, sorry, I didn't mean to touch that, will approve the Sunset Pier, which is in the 3 years in the approval process this September. I hope we don't have to wait until then. Next slide, please. The budget for phase 2 is $65 million. That was the estimate way back in the early fall of 2021, but we're sticking to it. $48 million of that $65 million is being funded by a tax backed city bond, which was issued last spring, and which has already been helping us pay for the design and the early stage work. At the time of this slide, we had $17+ million in government grants. I think the city's going to give us one of their EPA grants they can't use that we may be able to use for resilient shoreline and stormwater. That would take these grants up closer to 20 million. So we should have, knock on wood, with this government money plus private funding that's interested in some of the projects, be able to finish everything in 3 years. And that's important. The city bond terms require that we complete 85% of the construction by May of 2026. So as you'll hear in a minute, we're going to begin construction this summer. Next slide, please. This just is a little bit more detail showing that this seawall, if you've been over there, is in pretty bad shape. So we're basically going to build a new seawall, new infrastructure. These day docks will enable connectivity from the bay and from the barrier islands, from the keys. You'll be able to come over here with your boat and dock for the day. In phase 3, we'll add additional day docks on the north side. Next slide, please. This is a very rough sketch of the resilient shoreline, but essentially it's going to be a wetland version of what we did in the mangrove bayou. So we'll use ponds and terracing and native vegetation to be part of the whole terrain that cleanses the water and removes the pollutants, as well as, of course, denitrification trenches and baffle boxes and all the other techniques that we use. You will be able to walk throughout it on a boardwalk if you're over the pond, on a walkway if you're on ground. Next slide, please. This is artist's rendition of what it should look like. We're hoping it'll look a lot like that. There will be shade structures, although I doubt they're going to be that dramatic along the bay. Next slide, please. This is the front of the park. So we're looking from Broadway, Alinari, Renaissance, across North Tamiami Trail into the park. North Tamiami Trail will be tree lined. There'll be a tree lined and landscaped median down the middle of the parking area, and there'll be a promenade that goes from 10th Street down to 6th Street, also tree lined. So it's going to look like park, okay? And in the same time, and I'm really happy about this, we've been working our way through the 4 historically significant, architecturally significant buildings on this front edge of the park: the Garden Club, the Blue Pagoda, the Chitsea, and the Municipal Auditorium, all of which are on the National Historic Register. Next slide, please. This is what it looks like today. Next slide. This is what it will look like. Okay, next slide, please. This is what it looks like today in front of the Municipal Auditorium. Next slide. This is what it will look like. Next slide. And the next one. I was just talking with one of your group about fountains here in Sarasota. We are going to find a way to save the hazard fountain, or at least the pineapple that's left at the top. All of the engineering and all of the mechanics, of course, will have to change, and we're going to move it closer to the Municipal Auditorium, which is we all believe, a better place for it. Next slide, please. This is the Chitsea today. This was actually, I don't know if it was it leased or to the county. It was definitely operated at the county when I first came here as a historical association, and then that shut down, and then it was abandoned for a while. And it's in rough shape, but we are going to be able to recover the building from a structural standpoint. We got a grant with the city that enabled us to do the design and structural engineering, and we're going to renovate it, and it will become the office and operations center of the Bay Park Conservancy in the back, and then in the front, we will recreate as best we can the old library look, and that'll be a reception area and a conference room. Next slide, please. This is the Blue Pagoda. I remember distinctly when we walked into it several years ago. It had not been used for a while. It was pretty dingy, had an odor about it, and it needed some significant cleaning up, and we got a lot of help, a lot of in-kind support, and it's very operational today, and it's in good structural shape. And of course, we landscaped all the way around it. Next slide, please. This is the kind of transformation that we can do. This is the Garden Club. This was Tuttle's Puddle. This was polluted. We had to send people in hazmat suits to clean it up. The Japanese lantern was in the bottom of the pond, so it was recovered. We added the fountain as much for water quality as for aesthetic reasons. And then we've done a couple rounds of planting, and we've totally planted around the Garden Club. So we'll go inside the Garden Club. We just got a gift from PGT, a donation of over $300,000 worth of sliders and windows that we'll use in the Garden Club, in the Chitsea, and in the Bayfront Community Center, which is the back piece of the municipal auditorium. Next slide, please. Last piece is the town square. There is something called Plaza de Santo Domingo. It really hasn't been used as a plaza for the most part. We've done a few things there. We did a Ukraine event there. We did an Ian event there. We did our first Taste of the Bay there. But this will become park with hardscape and a gathering place, and be just a flexible area where we can do all kinds of different activities and events for the community. Next slide, please. So what can you do? I hope, have you all been to the park? That's a nod, okay. All right, good. Probably the best thing you can do for your physical health and your mental and emotional health is take a walk in the park every day or a few days a week. Participate in one of the activities. How many of you participated in activity or event? You don't have to tell me whether you're a dancer or need to know all that. And then bring your family, friends, and neighbors, you know, to watch sunset, take a walk, or engage. We just went through Giving Challenge. We were incredibly grateful and pleased that the second time in a row, the community was very generous to the Bay Park Conservancy. We are still toting it up, but we think we have now over 2,000 friends, which is, you know, really great. And the thing about the way we do our fundraising is we want that to be as accessible and open as possible. We got several really nice emails from people who said that it was great that here was an organization that was quite happy to receive $10 or $25 or whatever they could do, you know, to contribute to their park. We have 112, is that about right? 112 business partners of the Bay, almost all local small businesses. This is an incredibly important program because every dollar they give us goes to enable the programming to remain free. And all of our programming is free except for some of the paddle. You can learn to paddle for free, okay? But if you go and want to paddle for an hour or two, you do have to rent a paddle. All the other activities are free. And then last but not least, learn more about the needs of the Bay. We've had over 100 volunteers at various times work with us. We have some people that work with us part-time. So if you're interested in learning more about what we do or how we do it, we'd be happy to talk to you. We're neighbors. Most of us are neighbors. So that's all I've got in terms of a presentation. I hope it didn't go too long.
No, that was just perfect. Our protocol, everybody, is we have our board members, and then we have some time our member reps. So from our board members, are there any questions, comments? I've got a couple that I want to defer to Ken, anybody. AG, one of the things you and I talked about was connectivity being one of the guiding principles and the challenge we have with the moat, so as to speak, of the
41.
Yeah. Can you talk to us about how we think about that as the Rosemary continues to grow, the Quay?
Yes. I'm going to probably take it in three parts, okay? First of all, the master plan did anticipate that 41 was going to be a challenge to cross safely. And the original master plan that was approved, as you saw, it actually had 3 overpasses, one at 6th Street, one at 10th Street, 12th Street. The current master plan, the most recent one that was approved, has one at 9th Street. So I think one thing that we will be doing is recommending an overpass as part of phase 3. So when we move north of 10th Street and do that piece, we would like to take on the overpass. And that's important because I think there are city conversations, I don't know if they've progressed to plans, for a garage, a public garage in the Rosemary District, which is also tight. For those of you who live in the Rosemary District, is very tight on parking. Right? So that was anticipated. Second thing that was part of the original plan was that a lot of that parking would go under the park. By the time we get to the edge of the resilient shoreline in phase 2, we'll be at 10 feet above bay level. By the time get to, if the city chooses to go ahead with a new performing arts center, will be at 18 feet above bay level. So just like in Miami, just like in lots of European cities and Asian cities, there is a very real possibility that park could be built over parking, okay? Third thing I would say is there is a scheduled meeting, well, in the interlocal tax increment funding district proposal, funding is provided for 3 capital improvements. One is the park, one is a portion towards the new performing arts center, because the city's agreement with that nonprofit is sort of 50-50 in terms of funding. And there's a proposal, and I believe Vice Mayor Aaron Koch might have actually made the recommendation, and it was a good one, to connect 10th Street and 6th Street, Boulevard of the Arts, to the park in a way that was pedestrian friendly, bicycle friendly, micro-mobility friendly, safe, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. As you and I talked, there is a meeting, I think many of us received a notice in the last couple of days on May the 23rd. I believe it's at City Hall. And the Transportation Planning Department is going to unveil their current, what they call complete streets proposal. So I haven't seen it. I don't know if, well, I won't put our mayor and vice mayor on the spot, whether they've seen it or not, but that's, if you're interested in that, and there's a lot of interest about safely crossing 6th Street and 10th Street, you know, you definitely want to go to that meeting if you can make it. Now, this is your opportunity, right, to understand what the city's planning for your neighborhood and for this kind of connectivity. And the last piece is the whole, all of those day docks and a lot of the changes that are being made to the boat launch are intended to improve our connectivity on the water side. I mean, there's virtually none. Again, I believe the city is working on, or at least, how shall I say, entertaining proposals for water taxi service. There is water taxi service up in Bradenton to Anna Maria Island. So it's probably going to come. And the question is, you know, when it comes, yes, we would like to be a stop on the water taxi, you know, service route. I'm sure Bayfront Park would want to be a stop, but you could, if you really think about it, if a water taxi is in place, there are plenty of logical stops, right? Ringling, Bay, Bayfront Park, Selkie, etc. So that's, when I think about connectivity, I try to think about it 360 degrees. 41's a challenge. I guess the last thing I would say, the state did reduce the speed limit to from 45 to 35. I think there are things that could be done to actually slow traffic down to 35. And city engineering and traffic team actually put together some proposals a couple of years ago that Bill and I were encouraging them to continue to work on, and I don't know what's happened, you know, with those, but it's an important subject, and it's something that your residents and your condo associations are going to want to weigh in on.
Other, Victor.
There are a lot of people who live adjacent to Bay, particularly at BLBD and at Boulevard of the Arts.
Yes.
The original master plan seemed to have had a bridge.
It did.
We had thought. I can tell you, somebody who tried very carefully to get across the street, that there are a lot of people who are really concerned about safe transport, and if they're pedestrians or if they're in a vehicle. Do we have a shot at any point in time of having a bridge there or some means of getting cross sector?
We actually sketched it out for the city, and at least the city management wanted us to take a look at 9th Street. I'm now, you don't want to trust your memory too much, right? My recollection was between Boulevard and the then owners, managers of the boutique hotel on the south side, they felt that it was going, you know, any overpass was going to be too close to their buildings and some of their residents in their rooms. So they were giving the city feedback that maybe we should look at a different crossover spot. I could probably dig out those plans, but we actually did sketch them out. We actually did look at the engineering, and the engineering actually is probably the easiest because Coconut is, I don't know, what elevation is Coconut at?
It's like 20.
Yeah, so, I mean, I know we could pretty much launch straight off of Coconut, and, you know, it wasn't gonna be that difficult to build. 9th Street's, the advantage of 9th Street, it's wider open, and we have a longer run. That's a very deep property, and I believe city management talked with the owner of the property, and he was more open to an overpass going there. I think what's important is we put one in and we try it. You know, I don't see any downside of trying it and see whether it improves safe crossing the road, reduces the number of accidents, and frankly, just allows people to get back and forth. And it's not just into the Rosemary, it's north into Coconut, it's east into Gillespie Park, it's, you know, northeast into Newtown. I mean, there are a lot of neighborhoods that are served by being able to get across that street.
I got a question from somebody on emails or anybody else. Okay. Benches in sitting areas. I
Yes.
know benches and sitting areas in parks in general, you know, put them in, take them out because of unsheltered and misuse. And the question is, what's the balance and what are some of the plans as you get into phase 2 of
Yeah.
trying to thread the needle?
Another thing we're continuously experimenting with, I'm pretty certain that the facts show that year by year, the unsheltered and, you know, otherwise known as homeless population, which by the way, has the right to use the park as long as they're complying with all of city park and rec policies, right? We have far fewer trying to sleep in the park either during the day and overnight. The combination of security cameras, which run from south of Van Wezel Hall, all around the Mangrove Walk, all the way down to the playground, and we were just going through the camera placement along the Promenade, have dramatically discouraged anyone coming to the park or staying in the park after hours. And lastly, well, 2 more things. Sarasota Police Department, if you've probably noticed, the bicycle control patrol is regular now. Come through in the morning, they come through in the afternoon, they often come through in the evening. We bring in either SP, Sarasota Police Department, or private security for certain events in the evening if they're going to be larger. And we randomly hire private security to work the night shifts. So that combination has been good for, you know, managing appropriate use of the park. In terms of the benches, most of our benches have dividers. They're freestanding benches. They have dividers which discourage sleeping. By the way, nobody should be sleeping in the park during the day. It doesn't matter who it is, right? But we do have built-in seating areas that don't have dividers, right? Under shade structures, around the oval, and we've experimented with at least 3 different kinds of benches for use, park guest experience, maintenance, you know, a whole bunch of different factors.
Good.
We'll
I
probably
think
keep experimenting.
I think what I'm hearing is, as it gets more activated,
Yeah.
more benches, maybe looking out at the water
Yeah.
and stuff.
We're going to add to the furniture, more of the furniture is going to be moved south, because if you do go over for a sunset, it's crowded, right? People are all along the Light wall, they're on the sunset deck, they're sitting there. So we'll be buying some more Adirondack chairs. We'll be moving some of the chairs that don't get as much use on that little beach that's just north of that kind of purple bridge that's used to, city still uses to filter water.
Are there, open it up to member reps, are there any comments? Oh, Patrick.
Well, I had a question that came in.
Yes, sir.
Over there. And again, what you presented there is fantastic. The next door neighbors were active uses of the park. Question came up again about during the construction and the roadways and the walkways.
Yes.
And you're absolutely right. It's a nice 1 mile up, 1 mile back, a good 2 mile, 40-minute walk for those who stay active. However, during the construction, that goes away. And the concern is, how are you going
How do we
to
manage
build
it?
and build
Yeah.
and still allow access? Because in the past,
Yeah.
the residents have been forced to walk along vanways away,
Yeah.
dodging trucks and so forth. That was not good, or walk through the thing.
The answer is carefully and planfully.
And a part of that is there seems to be some changes in that whole roadway construction area. And will there be an opportunity for a feedback session? In other words, you had your outreach community working group or something, to actually people who are using the walkways, roadways, to feedback as to how that's going to work.
Okay.
Is that
Okay, that's multiple part question. I'll try
Sorry.
to cover all of them.
okay?
We made a number of changes, as you know, Patrick, on Van Ways Away. I think the most important one we made is we reduced the speed limit
Sure,
from 35 to 15. We put in the warning light system, so if you are going over 15, it'll catch you on your bike. What's not perfect, and we don't have a great option for it right now, is we don't have pedestrian sidewalks all the way along Van Ways Away, so you have to cut into the park. We also put in safer crosswalks. So as we do the cultural district, we're looking at, can we put some sidewalk or at least walkway on the back side, the west side, you with me? West side of the Chitsey and the Art Center, to get you to the sidewalk, get you to the town square and get you to the sidewalk that goes north, okay? That also connects you to the sidewalks that promenade that goes down the front. So that's how we're addressing that one. On the resilient shoreline, I hate to say it because I'm a heavy walker too. What we're gonna have to do is walk around the fence and walk through the parking lot and then connect back to the walkway south of the boat launch. Now, the good news is we're gonna go in and do the canal infrastructure work starting August and September, and we'll be done at the end of the first quarter next year before we start the resilient shoreline. So we're trying to sequence and cadence the projects so we don't have a lot shut down. We're going to be doing we do a little bit of improvement every year, every summer, as you probably notice, in the park itself. So there will be some fenced off areas, but we're going to try to keep all the access and all the walkways open.
A member rep, one last question.
Yes, sir.
About
Has there been any change to the food truck area that was supposed to be on the south side of the?
South side of the boat launch? That's going to be part of, if we went back to the master plan, we add launch, we have 50% if you go all the way back and look at we definitely add launch capacity for the boaters, and we need it on weekends, okay? We add convenience retail, so if you think of what's available, down by Sofrito Fishing Pier, yeah, exactly. So it'll be similar to that. There's provision for up to 3 bayfront restaurants, and then there's provision for an arch shade structure that would have the food truck village. Okay, so that's all planned.
Is that more phase 3 now?
That's that will be phase 3. That will be phase 3. What we tried to do was put all the architectural and hardscape stuff we could in phase 3 because it's sort of the same kind of architects and designers, the same kind of engineers, and the same kind of construction. And we pulled forward more of the resilient shoreline. I really do want to be able to do that resilient shoreline all the way up to Hawks Creek. I really want to be able to do all of Hawks Creek. So if we can get all of the green space done, all of the resilience done, and a big chunk of the stormwater treatment done, then we can work there. The other reason why we want to do that all in phase 3 is depending on where the Purple Ribbon Committee recommendation comes out in another year, roughly, and where the architects, plan for a new performing arts center comes out. That's going to come together in the next year. So we want to be working out of the way of whatever transpires for Van Wezel Hall and or new performing arts center. Because right now they're just, I mean, essentially they're placeholders. As long as Van Wezel Hall operates, I mean, we have a very close partnership with them. So we do a lot of activities and programs together, and we touch each other all the way around. So that's the plan until that's not the plan, and that's the city's decision. Ultimately, the commission.
AG, thank you so much.
Thank you all very much.
We're really excited, and thank you for taking the time to
Happy to
be
be
with.
here.
We appreciate the update, and it's incredibly exciting. I mean, you just think back 3 or 4 years ago with what has happened, and it's just kind of
It's
mind-boggling.
been, I'll just say 2 things. This has been an incredible, I can't, there's probably 150 ideas that are in the park that were recommended from one community member or one park guest or another, right? It just gets incorporated. And the other thing I'll say, and I said this, I can't remember whether it was city or county commission, we are reaching virtually all ages, 8 months to 88 in the park, all ethnicities, all genders, all nationalities. If you're there on a Sunday and listen to the number of languages that are being spoken, it isn't just English and Spanish. It's languages from all over the world. And I mentioned, we're regularly seeing people at our activities and programs coming from multiple counties. And of course, visitors, right? I think there are 2,000 hotel rooms that are within a 1-mile walk of Bay. And there are currently 2,000 condo residences that are across the street from the Bay. And you know where that's going to end up when the Rosemary finishes building and the Quay finishes building. It's just going to be denser.
Well,
Thank you.
Thank you again, and stick around if you'd like. You got an
I would accept I have to go. I have to drive to my next focus.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Trey,
Thank you
good to
all.
meet you, sir.
Yeah, so I'm gonna stick around.
Okay, all right. Okay, thank you. Thank you, EG. That was really informative. Moving ahead, Patrick, if I could ask you to put up the next slide under, I guess it's kind of new business. I wanted it relatively near the start of the meeting. I think we had 29 people on Zoom there momentarily. I think that was near a record, post-COVID, at least record. So. Oh, back to the mind map. Okay, can we blow that up somehow? Okay, everybody, those board members, you will have seen this before in a different form. I know Mayor and Vice Mayor, you have seen a form of this. Why am I showing it again? It's because coming up on May 7th, the city is hosting a budget town hall. And this is, in my recollection, first town hall of this type exactly, at least in my time. And I think some of us kind of suggested this last year, as we were looking for a forum in which residents could have input to the city budget, halfway through the cycle. In years past, it's been because there's a workshop format, residents may not speak. And then you get further in the process and the cake is 3/4 baked. And so on May 7th, the city is hosting a town hall. I'm not sure how long, if it's still a 3-minute speaking period, but I just wanted to seek out consensus from the board. This is what you have seen before as what I view. It's not a strategic plan, but let's just call it some areas of my recommendation. And I think we had a general consensus on this of areas of focus. Starting in the top right are streetscape efforts. And we know, as AG was saying, the Boulevard of the Arts and 10th is moving from 30% drawings to 60% drawings to get some input. The hope is that of those projects, that would be the first to move forward to get built. A grant is being requested, and cross your fingers, the federal grant for 12 million comes through. So I think Marlon and the commission, I believe, this is hopefully moving into, shall we call it, implementation phase. It's agreed, it's part of the streetscape, it's the master plan, so it's not ad hoc, it's in the master plan, so let's implement it. The other thing you will see that the visioning for Main Street is moving ahead, and the city staff, I think, did a phenomenal job in their open houses if you had a chance to attend it. I think they're having another one coming up soon, so looking for feedback on improving already at least parts of a great Main Street, how to make it even better. I think one of the guest speakers at the speaker series, don't screw it up. So I think everybody's mindful that there's some good things there. Let's maybe be mindful of the charm and soul it has now. And then the newer thing, Fruitville. Some of you know Fruitville 4 or 5 years ago came up with a concept for that. It was maybe the wrong time for a good idea. But I think there's a move afoot to take another look at Fruitville, whatever designs, update that designs. And one reason it's here is with your okay, would be advocating for that appropriate monies be in the budget next year to proceed with design work. So money, priority without money isn't much of a priority, unfortunately. But Fruitville, in my opinion, remains probably amongst the most transformative things we could do in the near downtown area. Bay Park, of course, and their Selby and others, but if you think about what's wrong with this picture, Fruitville is certainly a poster child for what we probably don't do. Moving down to the right, cultural enhancement, the Performing Arts Center. The hope is that that can move ahead in a parallel track with the Van Wezel work, and that is critically important as one of our elements of soul and an economic driver. Let's be true. I mean, arts and culture are probably third or fourth largest employer in town, construction and in the hospital and schools. But hope is that that will move ahead. Bottom right is updating the downtown master plan, and if everybody, I think, is on side with a thorough rethink, and not just an update, but something is top-notch firm, just like was used in other aspects. We want to do this in a thoughtful way. It's going to take some money. Let's try and invest in the downtown master plan. Bottom left is urban forestry plan implementation. That's moving ahead. If you drove over here today, you will see land over here was basically, I'm going to use the term clear cut, but hundreds of trees. When the Bayside Club was built, right across, all 93 trees are going to be gone. So if ever there was a time to try and a more thoughtful approach to forestry and streetscape plans, it was yesterday. let's get on with funding of that. The other, at 9 o'clock is a revision to the DRC process. Lucia Panica is committed to try updating that. That may take some money. And part of that is 3D modeling, which a number of us have been advocating as part of the puzzle. That's going to take some money. What kind of appropriate funds can be invested there? And I see it as an investment. And then enhanced mobility options. AG, we talked about connectivity. You know, connectivity, either a pedestrian bridge or bringing back iRide. You know, thinking ahead, we're going to have 3,000 more people downtown. So how do we kind of get ahead of that curve and some best practices for walking, driving, bicycles, whatever, but taking a look at that. And then affordable housing support. Now, so I'm looking for, are we all in the boat on this, that these, there are other things we are working on that, you know, my goal in putting this together was to keep this to a relatively small number. I could put other arms on it, but before you know it, you end up with 15 priorities, which is kind of no priorities. But I think that these are, have a strategic element, have an economic development, have a quality of life. So discussions are, I had a spreadsheet in the backup material, but I kind of outlined it verbally. So excuse me for going on a little bit, but some of this we've gone through before. I've refined this. I have discussed it with, I think, 4 commissioners. Marlon, I think, broadly speaking, there is, maybe not every one of these, but as a broad picture, I think there is a buy-in, if you will, with the commission, and city staff, and hopefully our comments.
I think it's very constructive. I think in my experience with neighborhood associations in the cities tend to be negative and attack something. And I think this is a very constructive approach to creating a better city rather than let's stop a project. So I really like it.
And one of the goals here was to try and do it as a picture. People aren't great readers, and this can get distilled into words too, but, you know, busy folks and picture can be worth 1,000 words. May I just ask for consensus to, I would be at the town hall. Others are welcome, of course, to come and provide your input, but it would be my plan to provide input on this, asking for funding. Now, one concern about the town hall, it may focus too much on the expense side of things. One thing there I would observe is to make sure that our Parks and Rec department has enough money for park maintenance, right? But most of these things are, some are expense items, but obviously some are capital. Which is more strategic. I think making sure, to the extent it's fiscally responsible, parks, now that we're building them, let's make sure they will maintain.
Some of it's regulatory too.
Yeah. Victor?
There may be an issue that we'll discuss a little bit later on, but one of the things I think we ought to talk about as a budgetary matter is the importance of local control. The importance of our representatives, the people who we elect, have local control of their budgets. And I know that we'll discuss this a little bit later, but this is certainly something that has become much more important than late.
And I know some of the commissioners, Commissioner Jen and others have really advocated for this home rule concept and real concerns about that being eroded. So I couldn't agree with you more.
Well, we don't elect them so somebody up north can tell them what to do. And in that context, local control, I think, means a lot to everybody in this room.
Any other discussion? Peter Fanning, you're on Zoom. Judy, any comments from you folks? Okay, hearing none, I would like to accept, I'm sensing a consensus here to permit me to provide this kind of input, and I will treat that accordingly. The next item on the agenda is old business, and where Ken said, you know, I think DSCA has really tries to go out of our way to say, you know, four things: performing arts center, parks, this kind of stuff. Here's one situation we find ourselves in. 1260 North Palm, formerly known as Obsidian, is coming before the DRC in 10 days or so. And I have circulated to you a letter that I propose we send on behalf of DSCA, asking the question of making the observation that the applicant has reduced the building height by 14 feet from their prior proposal. But I'm recommending a position of DSCA be that if that is the case and cannot be altered for legal reasons, that the city is not willing to grant other adjustments. That letter has gone through about 15 drafts with the help of 3 people on the board. I think we have ended up with something that some people have observed can, others DSCA cannot, will not weigh in on every project. It's inappropriate and so forth. And I think this is a special case where member condos, a number of them have written in the email, and I think where I feel that the letter is pretty carefully crafted and professional and fact-based. And I would like to propose, if I may, tell me protocol on this, but I'd like to see if anybody will offer a motion to authorize me to say that letter on behalf of the. Is there a motion?
I would make a motion to have David send the letter to Philip Foster.
Yeah, the development, it's going to the DRC, so the point person there contact-wise is the planner at this point. It's not going to the planning board or the commission. So it's providing, in effect, resident input, for lack of a better word. So Patrick has made a motion to give me the okay to send that letter. Is there a second? You know, I polled some of you.
I'll second.
Okay, we have Clark seconding it. And any further discussion about it?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would like to make a comment about it. I think we're in an awkward position with respect to this project because of what Bob Fournier said in his memo. We're really in a weak position, and I wish we could be consistent with our traditional policy of not commenting on specific projects. But if we are going to do this, I would like to make a suggestion in the future. I'm not suggesting this be rewritten. In the future, look at how the project affects more broadly the downtown area. What is the benefit or the effect, the adverse effect on the downtown area as a project? Is it going to adversely affect it? For example, I think there's a question about the pedestrian experience with this project. There's a question about retail. You know, does consistent with our goals for downtown being a walkable, friendly place. I don't like these buildings, and we have a number of them that kind of sit on a platform above the street, and they don't connect with the street very well. But anyway, I think if we say that kind of thing, we could make this issue stronger. Our feelings made known in a stronger way about how this is not consistent with what we want our downtown to be. So I hope if we do this in the future, we think about that. We try to do that rather than what we've done here, because first of all, I think we're in a weak position, and the letter doesn't explain why we are asking them not to approve the adjustments. There's got to be a reason why someone would not approve an adjustment, and I think it would be helpful if the letter said that. Anyway.
All right, that said, we have Victor.
This is the letter I was talking about earlier. Look, from my perspective, this letter does not address the legal opinion that Mr. Pointer presented. And I joined Ken and other members of the board were asking a basic question. What impact, if any, will this legislation have on pending or future construction within the city during the time frames specifically noted in the statute? That is, in that regulation. Now, my first question is, have we informed all the members of our organization that the opinion exists? Do they know that the city attorney has rendered this opinion? And going to Ken's question, what impact will that have on pending, existing, or even future, during the time periods of that construction in our community? I think this opinion will affect every piece of property in downtown Fort, or any place where an owner or a developer may consider the importance of something called interstitial spaces. Because it's a specific time period this thing arises. I mean, it's almost a 2-year period that we may see some interesting changes to existing plans. So all I'm asking is, I'm prepared to join you on this. But I'm demanding that every homeowner or every board in our community get a copy of this letter. The letter that was sent by Mr. Fournier in response. People need to know what's going on.
I think that's a good idea.
Yeah, that was a jaw dropper to me.
Yeah, absolutely.
It came in an answer to one
And it
sentence
relates to
question.
Victor's comment before about local control, because here the state again has preempted local control.
So I'm sitting here and I'm looking at 2 members of the commission. I do not hold the late state legislature responsible for what they're doing yet. But I do hold you all now for what happens. When you do it, I think this preempts them. And I'm not a lawyer anymore. You know, not at all. I'm not a Florida lawyer. I think it's critical that someone be given the opportunity to hire a lawyer or think on a lawyer to see whether or not it will impact us in the future. Because frankly, I don't know the answer.
All right, so noted. Any more
Well, just as a follow-up to it, Victor's, I'm not sure I fully understand what Fournier kind of detail, but I think that would be something our zoning code committee could send out a news flash, as we've done before, with information about that and some context and explanation, so that the layman who's not a practicing attorney would be able to decipher and understand what that impact is. So maybe that's a follow-up point.
Okay.
Back to this letter specifically, and yes, there was a lot of efforts to try and not focus on a specific site block, but what is the impact on the neighborhood? And we did put in a statement there, but if the project had a smaller height footprint while maintaining a number of units, This approach would demonstrate a commitment to better harmonize with the surrounding environment and address the concerns of the community. Prioritizing the architectural design that respects the scale and character of the neighborhood, enhance project compatibility, and mitigate its impact. So, but maybe something more, what we were trying to do was look at the pedestrian experience and say that whatever they're trying to do there, it's having an impact on the people who
That's
around it.
that's a start.
Yeah, I mean, that's
Not enough.
really why we were trying to do that.
Okay, so noted, we have a vote. May I send that letter? Peter and Judy, I think you were on side with it when Judy says yes.
Yeah, this is Peter. I say yes.
And then Peter Fanning, I think, may have had to go, but the rest of us here, we are okay. So we've got five. Roger was a no, to be honest. And we have, so whatever that count is,
There's 8, yes.
Yeah,
One no,
eight,
and
eight no, one yes. I mean,
Eight yes.
Eight yes and one
yes,
no.
one no.
and
Okay,
1 F.
okay,
You're
thank
listening too
you.
carefully to me.
Okay, all right,
I have
all right,
a request,
yes.
and I don't know if this is on the table or not, but do we also agree that a copy of the 20-year letter should go to all of the local associations?
To the member reps.
Yes. to the
Oh,
member
of course.
reps. Well, not just to the member reps, to the boards themselves. Okay, I have no problem with it going to the member.
Member reps and asking for them to
Could
disseminate.
it be in the newsletter? Could be part of the newsletter next month.
There's a link or something.
That's fine with me.
Okay, I have a phone call with Bob Fournier tomorrow, and I have a couple items. I can add this to the list that needs to talk about more clarification. Okay, moving ahead, President's report, I really have kind of given it, I don't have anything more. Kathy, do you have anything from a city standpoint? I don't know if you're still on the line. Okay, I'm not seeing Kathy. I don't have anything. So moving on to committee reports, Ken.
Okay, on March 21st, there was a meeting of the Van Wezel Purple Ribbon Committee, and they had 3 professors from Ringling College there of art design talking about immersive virtual experiences as a possible use for the future use for the Van Wezel. And David Rovine is on the Purple Ribbon Committee. Maybe you can explain what the committee is doing at this point with the previous presentation by Mary Bensel and Lynn Singletary, and then these professors from Ringling College. What is it you're trying to do? Are you biding time until you get the engineering report, or what?
Well, I think we're gathering information. That's the whole point of it right now. That's the point of the meeting, and hearing from these different entities so that we gather intelligent information. Certainly the engineering report is going to be very critical. But each one of these entities have been bringing different and unique concepts of the possibility of repurposing the Van Wezel, should that be the ultimate decision. Decision has been made at all, and the goal is to take the 2 years to gather as much information as possible and make recommendations to the commission. But they've all been very fascinating so far, specifically that one with immersive virtual reality, because it's very contemporary, it's very successful in different parts of the country, and it's a fascinating concept. But that's what it is so far. They're all different concepts.
Okay, on April 16th, the City Commission meeting had a discussion about the affordable housing proposal that was made by the staff for buying land on First Street across from City Hall. I spoke as an individual in support of the project. I had contacted Brian Hirsch and Julie Leach and Heather Caston ahead of time, because the arts community has a need for housing. And I don't think the public generally understands the need and the expense that all of these professional organizations and even some of the non-professional organizations are involved in trying to house artists who are visiting here or working here. So, and Julie Leach did speak, and I think she was very informative. The commission also had a recent discussion on David, Michelangelo's David, as the city logo, and it left me with the feeling that people don't really understand the significance of that piece of sculpture. It's not just a new dude. It's David was commissioned specifically by the Florentine community because they had kicked the Medici out, this authoritarian group of rulers of the city. And so David represented rebellion against authoritarianism. He represented democratic government. And so I think it's not only a Renaissance masterpiece of art, it's also consistent with our own goals here in the city. So I sent an email to all the commissioners and a couple of other people about it, including Brian Hirsch, because I'm trying to get the Arts and Cultural Alliance more involved in what's going on in the city. Tomorrow, the Tiger Bay Club is having a discussion about the Van Wezel. This is their second attempt. The first one failed.
I think they canceled that. Don't mean to interrupt you, didn't they cancel that?
Yes, I was on the panel originally. So I'm very aware of what happened. And I'm not going to talk about it. Anyway, there is an article in this week's Observer about Florida Studio Theater's proposal for a high-rise structure adjacent to the property on First Street, is it? First Street. It's changed, actually. You know, Richard Hopkins came here about a year ago and made a presentation about a 10-story structure that would include a hotel and retail and 2 new theaters and housing. And it's now 8 stories instead of 10. And the hotel and the retail has been removed and now includes a new main stage theater, 2 new cabaret theaters, an extended stay studio apartment for visiting guest artists or apartments, affordable housing for Sarasota's year-round arts workers, and secure and convenient parking spaces. So doesn't surprise me.
Okay.
I think the project is over-ambitious. Now, they may have lost their lead donor. Patrick Mulva was originally their lead donor. It was going to be called the Mulva Center. It's now called the FST Arts Plaza, but I don't know what's going on there.
Is this an addition, not replacing the?
It's replacing the original proposal. And you mentioned before the meeting that the orchestra has identified an architect of record, but not a design architect yet for their project on Fruitville Road out near I-75. So that's it.
Okay, thank you. Associates and Events Committee, Jamie, you and I have had some conversations in your backup material, but the topic is October workshop concepts. Take it away.
Yeah, so we're just starting the preliminary discussions for the October event. Usually we start planning in about a month. We had an idea, of course, many of you noticed that the condo prices are flattening or going down as HOA fees and insurance rises, it's making condos a little less attractive to buyers. So we had an idea of bringing in a panel, probably 4, 5, 6 speakers, to talk about what we can do to improve the value of the condos. So we're gonna probably be pulling more of our associate members, talking about new technologies, maybe even a real estate agent, what are they seeing, what are the trends? So it's just kind of an open discussion. We don't have to have a discussion right now. I know we're kind of short on time, but if you guys have anything that you're concerned about specifically in the prices of condos or things that can help improve the value, you know, please reach out.
Yeah, Patrick, you were instrumental, you and the mayor, you know, the Wi-Fi conference here and the ideas, your ideas. Do you have ideas for the workshop based on what you saw related to or intertwined, and what Jamie and I talked about, how to add value to your condo. In other words, one is a technology component.
And we don't want to make the whole workshop about technology, because we've done that before, but one piece
So
would be
it's kind of coming at a little bit of a money angle.
Yes.
First of all, for those who don't know, 8 days ago, Mayor Albert declared Wi-Fi Day in Sarasota at the Wi-Fi World Congress held at the Westin Hotel. And they had 300 or 400 delegates, many from around the world, coming here to learn about the latest with Wi-Fi version 7 and all the technology that goes with that. What I was impressed with was a half a dozen different presentations on how wireless management in multi-user dwellings is the target market. The fact that we had no one from the city staff there to listen and learn about that. Of course, the videos and slides will be available online. We'll try and make that available. What came out of that, though, was for condominiums. And my condo's going through right now, installing new access control systems and trying to train people on what the difference between a RFID connection you have to have right against it, Bluetooth and Wi-Fi, etc. It's confusing. It's confusing to the property managers. And it appeared to me that this is the kind of thing that our property managers need to be more aware of too, of how all this stuff fits together. And so I think, but not as much of the technology, but just what do you do with these things, and how do you better manage your building and making those services available to you is a key part of it. Yeah, that's a.
So let us, independent of this, flush out that idea or a couple scenarios for positioning and stuff that we have here, and we'll try and get it done maybe for next month. Continue it.
For sure.
Anything venue-wise or dates? Are we looking at
We
any?
usually do well, it won't be the last Thursday of the month, because that's Halloween, but probably either 17th or the 24th, somewhere in that vicinity, to try to do it on a Thursday. So looking at different venues, potentially the Sarasota Museum, I'm gonna have to meet somebody there, and I did reach out to the contact you gave me in embassy today. So.
Okay. Okay.
Yep.
Thank you. Moving ahead, green space is open. I'm not sure Patrick and I have talked about more benches and parks, but we're working about this independently.
Okay, there is an event on thinking up on May 13th. You want to say about that, the urban forest program?
Oh, okay. Take it away. I'm having.
You can try and quickly just put it up on the screen here all
Too many meetings.
the time. All right, so we received from the Jeff Brindenberg this report that was from last year, but this was the work being done on the urban forest program, and this was in the grant that was given in the scope of work here, which, as we said, was only a small amount, $32,000 to generate a urban forest management plan. What's a little confusing in the last email, where he mentions this report is being drafted, so he didn't have it available for us to review coming out there. But he also said that this project was not an update to an urban forestry program. But the grant was for an urban forestry plan, urban forestry management plan. So we need some clarification on what's happening there. Okay, so before we can better follow it, report back.
Okay, so May 13th is the workshop. Okay. All right. Moving ahead, homeless and health and safety. Peter, are you with us? I think I'm pretty certain he had to go.
Yeah.
The homeless committee, we are meeting. I don't have a particular update on behalf of it at the moment, but that group is continuing to meet regularly. So nothing big to report. Transportation Committee, I know Roger is on a mailboat somewhere in Norway. So on the transportation thing, I think in the mind map, I covered some of the things that are kind of in the works and hopefully works. I don't think I have any thing to add to that. Zoning Committee, Peter, are you on? Yes. Peter, on the DRC, you're muted.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Could you give a little update on the DRC process? We did include in your backup materials board some initial areas of focus. So Peter, can you talk us through that?
Oh, sure. Of course, I don't have it in front of me. So so Lucia Penica said that she's going to undergo an effort to streamline the Development Review Committee or Development Review Services processes. And David suggested that we chime in with any suggestions that we might have. I guess one issue is that the e-doc system is a bit clunky. The documents aren't sorted by the most recent submission. So at least I find it that you have to sort of hunt and peck to find the relevant documents. And if there's some way that when documents get filed, that becomes known. If you sign on, there's a website that shows new filings, or you can sign up on a distribution list. That was one idea. David, you got to prompt me here.
Yeah, the other couple, and first of all, we want to get this, to Lucia in a coherent. One thing was increasing early on in the process, developers' acknowledgement of sound ordinances. How is it appropriate to, I'm going to use the word prenup. I mean, is there a disclosure where it is a conversation in a more formal way about what are the sound generating activities planned at that building, and get that kind of on the table. And then another thing was, I mean, this is a small thing, encouraging, speaking of sound, encouraging developers to consider upgrading their window specs, rather than, another was trying to do what is possible to make the developers that much more aware of neighborhood associations. And even though it's a sore spot, but community workshops aren't required or even massive projects, that try and encourage developers voluntarily to engage with people or subcommittees such as this. So those are a few of the things we're kind of working on. I want to get constructive, positive comments, see what their timetable is, but hats off to her for looking at the process, trying to improve it. Victor?
Yeah, one thing you learn after you serve on this committee for a while, you learn to appreciate the people at the DRC, what they do. I got a question that I'm getting from a lot of people. How does one find out what property is for sale in the city? I'm talking about specifically what property, for example, that may be distressed or may be in a particular area. It can be bought by a developer, for example, for possible reasons. Develop. how does one find out whether or not a particular property that is in an area where the city is doing a lot of development is actually for sale?
Talk to commercial realtor.
Yeah.
Luke, I mean, I don't know, I don't know.
All right, it's a question that comes up when, you know, developers may be able to buy property at a less. Because.
Well, and Victor, the problem is developers assemble lots with purchase contracts with an option to purchase the lots, but they actually haven't even closed on it, so it wouldn't be recorded anywhere. So that you just have to be in touch with the commercial real estate brokers, really.
Patrick and.
Yeah, one other quick thing we have in there is asking to approve the transfer of the developer site plan to the building operators. That we're finding that, especially with the newer condos going in, site plans call for, say, for instance, the trash pickup to be done within the building. So they build a loading zone inside underneath covered building, and yet operating wise, the large trash bucket things are rolled out either onto the sidewalk or the street or someplace. They're not picked up inside the building according to the site plan. And so it appears that maybe somehow in all that stuff within site plans, and the operators aren't operating according to the site plan. And so looking into why is that? Because we see a big problem here at Coy with scenic murk full of garbage pickup stuff, and they're not inside the building. And it's been reported, and maybe we should talk to other condos, if you're seeing the similar kind of issue of operationally, the trash pickup is not being done according to the site plan, maybe a bigger problem. That's what we want to take a look at too.
Okay, and so to be continued. Thank you, Peter, for your work, and we'll kind of refine this, find out from Lucia what her process is for looking at this and how we plug into it. Next item, on the city commission agenda Monday is a proper removal related on 4th and Fruitville. I'm up to my neck in details on this. Let's just say that I feel that that's important, and we're trying to work on some mitigating strategies. It's confusing, but it's important, and it's moving forward for coming to the full commission for a vote on Monday. And there's some moving parts of it that have occurred even as early as today that are somewhat troubling, but we'll try and figure that out. Okay, I don't want to go into detail because it would take a while. Bay Park Conservancy, Bob, do you have any?
Well, I don't think I can add much to what's been presented tonight, so,
Okay.
we'll check in next month.
Okay. There's a CCNA meeting on Saturday. I will be going. I've gotten some input from Patrick on matters of that I might bring back up on our behalf. I'm not aware of any motions there that I need your concurrence to support or deny. So that's on Saturday. Rosemary Association, some work at the park. They've stopped for another 3 or 4 days. They're driving me nuts, but it'll get done when it gets done with this. Annika, platinum members, some folks with some new news. We'd sure appreciate hearing from them.
So, hi everyone, I'm Communities with Burke Simpson, do construction defects litigation. I do their marketing, and we represent associations and condominiums, HOAs with construction defects. I'm assistant to Jamie, the liaison, so I introduce members. Platinum members, we'll start with Paul. Sure. Sir Paul.
Yep. Walking a little slower these days. I was down at Bay Park doing some dancing down there.
trying to do some break dancing and it turned into slam dancing. So emergency services, things don't really change with emergency services. If you have a problem, you call somebody, we come in, clean it up and get it ready to go, right? No monumental changes there. What I will tell you is we're rolling into hurricane season. You hear me talk about that often, and I'm sorry I have to keep bringing it up, but here's the nice thing. We host, along with several other sponsors, a lunch and learn down at Marina Jack's. It's the second Friday of every month, and the reason that's relevant is I just went to a meeting where, it was a presentation actually. Sandra from Sarasota County, she's the chief of the emergency management organization there. So she gave a nice presentation about hurricane preparedness. And so we're bringing her in probably June or July. I'll keep you updated on that, but it's a good way for you all to attend, have a nice lunch, get updated on the county's plans. There are some new things coming out with how they report, how the maps are depicted to make it a little bit easier to understand. So that's going to be new. I didn't create it, but we'll bring it to you by virtue of the lunch and learn. We'll keep you updated on that.
I do want to share, I want to share a story about Sarasota. I'll make it very, very quick.
Oh, I was gonna say, do you have to make a reservation?
You do. So we send out probably 1,000 invitations to it. We usually get about 100 people showing up. So I can send it to members here and just ask you to forward it to the team.
So I actually had the misfortune of having to use an emergency service last week, and I have to say, I called Paul, picked right up. They were out within an hour. Thank God to solve my emergency cleanup situation, and they were extremely professional. Everything worked out fantastic. I couldn't say more wonderful things about the company.
Appreciate that. Thank you. Good. Appreciate it. Good. Thank you all.
Rachel James, Phoenix Bay.
Hi, I'm Reva Jackson from Havens Bank Association Services, and I can tell you the same things I always tell you. Associations need banks to take care of their finances. We offer the same things that most association banks offer: checking accounts, money markets, CDs, at competitive rates. We also have insured cash sweep CDRs. We also have, if your documents allow for it, you can invest in things like T-bills for maybe possibly a better rate of return sometimes. Going into hurricane season, sometimes you want to get in place those lines of credit or emergency lines of credit or those insurance deductibles or any unexpected items that may come up. We offer loans for any kind of projects that you're working on: roofs, pavements, seawall repairs, the list goes on and on. I do have a bit of update for you as far as some advancements we are making. We're in the throes of updating our online portal. So it's more robust, it's more user-friendly, we'll have more bells and whistles for you to use. So we're hoping that will wrap up end of second quarter, and we'll be moving our associations into that realm very quickly. If we can ever be of assistance to you, call us, even if you just want information. It doesn't have to be that I want to open an account. Maybe you just want to talk to us and get some information. We're happy to partner with you that way as well. We love to work with communities, find out the rhythm and flow of your community, and help you reach those goals.
Go Steve with Howard.
Thanks, Ed. Steve Shaw from Howard Communications, fiber optic broadband and television services to HOAs and condo associations. Growing very quickly downtown and also throughout Sarasota County. We recently signed a contract with Le Chateau over on Susan Drive, and have a couple of other pending proposals with a couple of high rises downtown. So we're excited as we continue to expand the our fiber optic network. Good, thank you.
I was the one to answer the call. Just kidding. Hi, everybody. Kristen with Core Marketing. I haven't been here in a while, so I guess something new for me is I have a couple of new clients. I actually represent a portfolio of clients to the association industry, so some service residences individually and some the association as a whole. My two new clients are Mitchell Insurance and Beach Breeze HVAC. Then I also represent an association attorney, engineering firm, professional plumbing and Broadway emergency services. If you require any of those services, let me know and I'll connect you right away. Thank you.
He's hiding. Don.
Hey, Don. Hi there. I'm Don Fitz with Oliver Oaks Retirement Community, which is down where Pineapple and Orange Together, privately owned, independent living and assisted living. It's a nice neighborhood. As a matter of fact, one of your board members lives in the same neighborhood as the neighborhood of ours. On Friday of next week, we have a medical cannabis seminar at Alderman Oaks. It's a really neat program for seniors, especially with chronic illnesses, sleep disorders, neuropathy, cancer. There's legal ways of doing it, very, very rigid ways of doing it. We have a protocol at Alderman Oaks for it. And then Friday, the end of the month, May 31st, we have monthly concerts. We have a concert with the Paisley Craves out in our garden area, or if the weather doesn't permit inside. So we hope to see you for either of those events. I have flyers available if any of you are interested, or you can go on Eventbrite online to register. Thank you.
I believe. Yes.
Okay. Any comments by member representatives? This is your chance on the agenda. If you have comment, question, relatively brief, hopefully, but we certainly want to give the member reps who are on Zoom or here, if they have any input, questions, suggestions for your board. Jim.
I would just urge the city council to keep David.
I didn't catch that.
To keep David.
Oh, keep David.
The David?
Oh, keep
Keep David.
David.
Michelangelo's
Okay,
David.
I'll
The
second
arts
that.
are such an important part of this community. David is so important, that effort symbol. I think it would be disrespectful to the arts community to change the city logo. It's just my thought. And while I'm preaching here, the Sarasota Ballet has been invited and is going to London to perform. So that's in June. That's an international audience. They're dancing at the Royal Opera House in London. That's an enormous accomplishment. So my little thing, we just remember David is so important to arts, to democracy, to the creative genius we have here in Sarasota, and the beauty of the ballet. If you want, season just ended, but the ballet is a huge part of our community. Even we have our professional dancers, we have a school run for aspiring dancers, and we have Art the Next Generation, where we provide services to hundreds and hundreds of kids to learn to dance, help them with their homework, kids who would not have that opportunity. And that's all done by our dancers, our ballet staff. So I just see David as a symbol of that creative energy, and I really would like to see that stay.
Okay. Any other member reps? The wine is chilling over there. By the way.
I just want to follow up what he just says. I think David being part of the identity of Sarasota is really important, because it is a lot of what makes Sarasota different than a lot of other beach communities in Florida. And if we push the beach side of it, forget the art side of it, we lose our identity.
Okay. And by the way, Bob, thank you very much for recommending AG to the thing that turned out well. If there are,
Hank has
oh, yeah,
I
yes,
just
sir.
wanted to ask one question. I don't know if this is the place to ask it, but who would we contact? There's two commissioners here. Who would we contact about the difficulty with the street? Well, we live on Palm Avenue, both Ken and I. And there's between Palm and Orange, there's Alton. And what happened is, which we greatly appreciate, they closed the median off so people can't go across Palm and make a left, after they redesigned Selby Gardens, which, believe me, is much quieter on our corner now. People aren't leaving and carrying on. But the problem is, the Alderman Street is basically an alley. It's very narrow. They put no parking signs on one side of the street, and unfortunately, the developer, the owner of the blank property, of course, put a fence up, but people park on the other side to the point that they're parking to the stop sign. And there's always been a couple people that have been almost clipped on the sidewalk as well as with the cars. I want to know how we can get someone over there to look at that.
Okay, I have some specific ideas. As soon as we end up, please, I'll give you some names and my thoughts. For
And what it did was, there's more traffic there now because most people go around the corner to go to the light. So there's a lot more traffic on that street.
I've got a couple thoughts on certain people that might help you. Okay, I think that's it. Next month, we're meeting on June 5th, same time, same place. Emily Walsh, the publisher of Your Observer, will be our guest, and I think that should be an interesting, in light of cover page articles you're seeing in newspapers these days. So we're really happy to have Emily. I will not be here in person, Jamie. I'm hoping I may be Zoomable, but I'm not certain. So next, June 5th, 4 to 5, and if there are no further comments, let's consider ourselves adjourned. Thanks, everyone.